Well, welcome everyone to, is this the fourth interview, Zoom call, I think, with Harrison Cramer out of, I don't even know where you're from anymore.
Unionville, really small town.
Unionville, Michigan, kind of by what, Saginaw area?
Yeah,
Right?
that's the closest city
Saginaw,
that comes
Midland.
out. Yeah.
This man goes to Western Michigan, is also in the MAT program with me, so we welcome him. And glad to see you here, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Well,
For sure.
here, quote unquote.
Here, quote unquote, absolutely. We're obviously in a Zoom meeting. We're not seeing each other face to face because the stay-at-home order has not been lifted yet.
Yeah,
It goes up a couple weeks, so who knows?
yeah. Hopefully.
But we're not going to talk about the pandemic because everyone talks about that now. We're just going to
Yeah.
talk about music and stuff. So initially, I had some questions for you, and we can dive right into them. So first one, tell me how you got into music, and then discuss your evolution as an artist.
All right. So I got into music when I was around 11 or 12 years old. I've always been a creative person. I've always needed a creative outlet. And that used to look like drawing pictures and like making superheroes and making my own comic books and whatnot. But um, me and my friend and my younger brother, all of us are pretty close in age. We would do all these creative things together. And then one day, our friend said, "What if we started to make rap music?" And we were like,
Yeah.
wow, what a great idea. Let's do it. And so we called ourselves Triple Beat, and we our raps were absolutely terrible at first, but
As
we
they start off,
slowly,
yeah.
yeah. And they made like no sense. We would talk about things that just weren't true.
Yeah.
But slowly we started to get more um meaningful with our music, and we actually got to have some cool performance opportunities. And the older we got into high school and stuff, my brother and my friend slowly stopped with the music, but I never lost interest, and so I just kept pursuing it. And then eventually, my parents bought me like my own studio setup, and I started to get more involved in the arts and things like drama club and things like music technology, and started to produce or record my own music. And that's I've been
Yeah.
doing that, stepping it up ever since.
Dude, that's awesome. I didn't even realize like it started off as I guess you could call it a trio in a
Yep.
conventional sense. But yeah, no, that's super awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. That just sounds that like it's interesting to me how so many people have very different like musical upbringings. Like I obviously growing up solo, not solo, I should say, only child, kind of, but I won't even get into that. Uh, yeah, I kind of had that like blues influence and like a lot of different things. I didn't really come to hip hop and rap until later on. Um, but no, dude, that's amazing. Like I love how you carry yourself, and as a result of that, like with being with your brothers, I feel like that definitely helped out with some of your musical leanings and things like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because a lot of people I knew growing up went through like a rap phase,
Right.
and that like they tried to be a rapper and they liked being a rapper for like a month or two.
SoundCloud
And
rappers of like
yeah,
2012.
yeah. And so people thought what we did was like interesting, but they also couldn't quite tell if we were like joking, and they couldn't quite tell when we
Right.
were gonna like wake up and stop doing this. And so I think for my friend and my brother, and obviously no ill feelings toward them at
No
all,
shade.
it was more of like the phase type thing. But for me, it wasn't. And so I started to become like more cultured in hip hop, more respectful of it, because a lot of times people who come from a place like I do, um,
Mhm.
which is like Farmville,
Yep, same here.
95% white people. you can really
Yep.
take hip hop for granted, and you can really, I don't know if misrepresent is the right word, but you like don't really
You don't understand.
have, yeah, exactly. You don't really
Yeah.
understand. So I've had to learn to have a better appreciation and a better respect for this thing that's kind of like a gift to me,
Mhm.
and it's special. I like it.
Yeah, and if you go even into the merging of musical genres, I actually had a really in-depth conversation about this, and we've talked about Kanye and stuff too in the past, you and I personally. But I was talking with Sam Robinson, Western Herald's previous chief editor and or editor in chief, I should say. And we were talking about. I was like, why is rap music like so vulgar and not I don't know, like something I didn't grow up with and something I didn't experience.
Mm,
And I think, yeah, like you said, like having the perspective as a white rapper that's actually taking it seriously is a really, it's almost like you're on the wrong end, you know? Because it's, yes, it's like a generally dominated black field of musicians. Not to say that like people can't, collaborate and enjoy it together, but I think there is that little pushback initially. I agree, like growing up in like Farmville, you know,
yeah.
and like then going to college and it's like, oh, there's diversity and like I actually have to, you know, it's not even like from a racist standpoint. It's just like I'm not used to this,
Hmm.
and adjusting and like learning and being like, I'm sorry I messed up, man. you know, learning
Right.
how to talk to people. And I feel like this goes into another question as well. With what type of collaborations have you formed in the past or want to form when you generally meet people or you're looking for a collaboration opportunity? I feel like you could talk about Rashi B a little bit too with
Definitely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, Rashi is another person in our multimedia arts program. And he's a year behind us in the program, and I met him last year, and I knew that he also made hip hop music. And so he was someone I got in touch with at almost the very beginning of the year, and we immediately started working together. We started planning things, and then into that second semester we actually like put out a song, and I knew that whatever future projects I found myself doing as a solo artist or whatever, I wanted him to be a part of it because he's super talented producer, super talented rapper. So like once I came to Western, I started to have obviously more performance opportunities, more open mic opportunities than you get out in Farmville.
Yep.
But so being a part of those, I got to kind of have an inside look into what the hip hop culture is in Kalamazoo, and I
Oh
got to
yeah.
have a much better understanding of it. It's like it's hip hop takes so many different shapes and forms,
Oh yeah.
and it's cool that I've been able to see and learn how to like respectfully navigate how I do it compared to how other people do it,
Right.
in terms of my faith, and also in terms of racial barriers, racial stereotypes, and stuff like
Yep.
that. Because I don't want to take this thing and act like I own it, because this really
Right.
is something that is a gift to me. That's how I see it, and I need to respectfully navigate this thing that I've stepped into, not that like
Right.
came to me.
Okay, we'll go to this other point because this is definitely one of the more polarizing things with your music. I feel like for a lot of people. So, what is the most challenging part of putting your own voice in an otherwise, I guess, religious or spiritual undertone type of music or piece? Or I don't know. I feel like there's because you've talked about even with your release the past week called "The Pass Through," correct?
Yep, that's right.
Just making sure I got that one right. It felt like you you were trying to channel like what God was speaking through to you, but also keeping your own artistic voice. And so like what is the most challenging part about that for you? Or is it just I don't know. Or is it
Yeah,
challenging?
right. That's a great question. So the thing about me creating music, especially when it comes to lyrical content, it's really hard for me to get behind something that I'm not feeling and that I'm
hmm
not truly inspired by. And so when it comes to making songs about those things, it's actually easier for me to make tracks like that because that's what I feel, that's what I care about. And so that just kind of flows out naturally. So putting that spin on my music and having it based on my faith and my relationship with Jesus is just like how it goes. That's just what you're going to get from me because
Right.
that's how I write. That's what I'm inspired by. So it's not really like I'm trying to put this thing on my music as like a gimmick or to make it sound unique. It's just how it happens because that's
Right.
part of my life.
And I feel like that's an authentic way of creating, regardless of like what people, view Jesus as or whatnot.
Hmm.
And I think even if they don't, believe or whatever, they can definitely, like, hearing you say that, just see like, oh, this is where he's coming from. And I think, with a lot of, even with people in our program with just so many different belief systems and like everything, it's just so, like, I'm so happy when people are actually like creating from the heart and creating from, either a higher power or whatever they, believe in strongly. And it's just like you
Yeah,
create more effectively when that actually occurs, you know?
definitely. And I've been surprised how many people like they don't agree. They don't have the same beliefs as me, but they
Right.
respect what I do
Mm.
because I'm being real about it. And so there's people who they can be like an atheist, they can have a completely different worldview than me, but they'll be like, "Man, I appreciate your heart and I appreciate your
Yeah.
honesty." And they can see like this passion that comes from somewhere, even if they don't agree with it. And so if we're
Right.
like you said, that authentic way of creating music is communicated to people, even if they don't agree with what it is that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
100%.
Mhm.
Um, and so kind of encapsulating all that together, what I know your parents kind of gave you that studio setup when you were younger.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, like, what kind of drew you to the MAP program as opposed to other programs, or like, what was the draw? You know?
Yeah. So I was sophomore, junior in high school when my parents got this equipment for me, a microphone, and then other family chipped in to give me some monitors and whatnot. And my mom started to look into these programs, whether it was like summer camps or whether it was job shadows, where I would be able to be in like a studio setting. And so when it came time to like look for colleges to go to, we knew for sure this was one thing that I was interested in. And so she started looking at what schools would have something that is even remotely related to what I'm interested in. And we were pretty doubtful that we
Yeah.
would find anything, but we found this thing at Western called the MAT program. And
Multimedia Arts Technology, for those who aren't
yep,
aware. I always
there
mention
you
it, and I feel like,
go.
yeah.
Yep, Multimedia Arts Technology. And we did our research and it sounded pretty much exactly like what I wanted to do. So I auditioned. I didn't think I was going to get in, but then I
Yep.
actually did get in and I was so surprised and I didn't really have a plan B. So it was like, this is what we're doing. And it was one of
Yeah.
the few schools in Michigan that actually offered it. And so that is what brought me here.
Right. And go ahead. I thought you were going to say,
Oh no, that was it.
oh, that was it. Okay. Yeah. Pretty much, 100% my experience as well.
Mhm,
Went in there, you got Dr. Biggs, Dr. Johnson, and Compost just sitting in there,
mhm.
just like, all right, what's a compressor? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh no. Yeah. Yeah, that
um,
was tough. I
and
would
yeah,
I actually like used the songs I gave them of mine. I used compressors and stuff, and I told them I use like gate, reverb, delay, EQ, and compressor. And they were like, What do those do?"
what
And
do
I'm
those
like,
do?
"Ah,
I don't know.
I don't really know, but I use them."
But you used him. I feel like back then we just like, I don't know, with digital audio workstations, at least like I grew up using Logic. I don't even know, maybe at 13 years old. And like I
Mhm,
would sometimes like plunk around and just make my own like musical compositions that kind of sounded like soundtracks from films or whatever.
mhm.
And this is before I knew all about like quantization, you know?
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
just like but looking back, it's like that was such a cool way to like embrace myself in the technology and like learn how to, generally speaking, learn those concepts, which then you can further reinforce in college and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, let's see. I have some other ones too. So, do you play any instruments currently, or
Yeah, I play the ukulele,
okay,
uh,
and
which
your
I was
voice,
surprised I was
and your voice?
surprised at how easy that was. Um,
Yeah.
well, if you like know the basics, it can be pretty easy. But I also know the fundamentals of the keyboard, and
Hmm.
I play the cajon, the little box drum thingy.
Right.
But aside from that, I am an aspiring musician
Aspiring musician.
on most instruments. I want to learn guitar, I want to learn more about the keyboard and the piano.
Yeah, that was
But
actually my exact question, was if you could play or learn another instrument, what would it be? And it looks like you just kind of answered that.
yeah, definitely. I think piano is super important and
Yeah.
the most like fundamental, basic, and most helpful instrument for especially like a hip hop artist and producing and stuff. But I'd love to play guitar because I really like worship music and I like
Yeah.
singing, and it just have like a few chords to go back and forth on would be sweet.
Going back to worship music again, because I thought this was, we also were in a music business class together this semester.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember Adam Neely, but he did a video on like Katy Perry and I forget the Christian artist's name. You might
Yeah,
remember
Flame.
Flame. Yeah. And so he does a bunch of different other videos too. And I think I might have sent this other one to you where he was talking about like why he like hates the sound of contemporary Christian music, but doesn't, but like appreciates it now for like what it is. And I'm kind of in the same boat of
Yeah,
like, I don't know, maybe I've just moved away from like a major happy sounding, like maybe it's just the tonal like expression of it that I'm just like, nah. But like at the same time, I love like how he reharmonized it. And again, like going back to appreciating even if you don't agree with, you know.
yeah,
And I think that's the only way we're going to be able to like understand people in this world, especially now with, you know, the pandemic going around, and we're all kind of in the same boat of like this uncertainty, you know.
yeah, definitely. There were a couple things I wanted to comment on.
Sure.
Um, when well, I personally I haven't always liked worship music because I also saw it as very, very like simple, very straightforward. And so
Right.
if it wasn't live, I wasn't really interested in it. And I think what happens to people like us is that when we start learning more about music and you start learning more about technology and you
Yeah.
start taking these classes, the simpler the songs are, the harder it is for us to enjoy them because it's
100%.
like we need more
We
we
need that
need
like
better like composition
stimulation.
than that. We need a better
Yeah.
arrangement than that. We need better effects than that, you know? So there's a lot of music
The
that
mix has
is
to kill it.
yeah, exactly. Um, but I think I found a place in my heart where I can like still revert to enjoying the simple things
Right.
and still like being kind of like a kid again and being like I do know all this stuff, but I'm just gonna enjoy this regardless
Yeah.
for what it is
And I
because
think
a
it's a
lot of it,
decision.
yeah,
It's a
and a
choice you have
lot
to
of it.
make.
I'm sorry, I can't. I
No,
keep
you're
interrupting
good.
you.
I was just saying it's a choice you have to make, and then you were saying something about a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it is this music is like being what it is, and it's not trying to. It knows what it is.
Right.
It knows it's simple. It knows all this and that, and so like this goes beyond worship music. I encourage anyone who is deep into a field of study, like don't forget to enjoy the simple things and the basics because those are there for a reason and those actually
Yeah.
mean a lot to people.
And it's the fundamental, like we all talk about fundamentals in music or music theory or whatever, or like whatever field you're in, and it's just like, oh my gosh, why do I have to like, you know, do this? And then you
Yeah.
get out of it, it's like, great, I never have to look at this again. Then it comes back in the form of like, you know, worship music, and you're like, like for musicians, I feel like it's kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, it feels like there needs to be more, you know? And
Mhm.
sometimes less is more. So it just, yeah, it's a perceptual readjustment, I think, sometimes that is necessary. But that's a whole nother conversation I could
Interesting.
get into for days.
I like it.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's talk about your creative process a little bit more. Um, how do you go about making your mixtapes? I know you released the pass through last week, which was super awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
I don't know if you gathered that I liked it, but I did.
I guessed that you did.
Yeah,
From your
there are a
responses
lot of,
on the live chat were encouraging.
the live chat was super cool, and
Yeah.
for anyone out there, I would definitely encourage using like a Premiere type of thing on YouTube or whatever
Yeah.
platform you're using. But yeah, how do you go about making your mixtapes? Like, what does that collaboration opportunity look like with other people? How do you seek them out, etc.?
Yeah, so this is the first collective project I've ever released. Before this, I just have released individual songs pretty spontaneously. And so I've always known that I wanted to make like an actual collection of songs and put it out together. So this was that. And how I did this was I um well, there have been a lot of times where I've tried to make a mixtape and I've written out the whole track list because people like us, we have a lot of songs lying around. And so I was
Oh,
like, we're
trust me,
gonna
dude.
yeah, we're gonna put these songs together. And I'm like, a couple months down the line, scrap it. That doesn't work. We're gonna
Yep.
put these songs together, scrap it, doesn't work. But eventually I got the right combination of old songs with new songs, and they
Yeah.
fit pretty well together. And so this was a lot of trial and error, but eventually these songs finally fit together. And so the creative process looked like uh, taking stuff from my past as well as doing new stuff, but recording all of it again. Um,
Right.
getting the beats because I produced none of the beats on this mixtape.
Mm.
They were either downloaded or Rashi produced them, and so it was
Rashi.
oh yeah. And then it looked like turning to the people around me. The community I'm involved in at school has a lot of very musically talented people, and so especially female vocalists, I got a lot of their help, and we did a lot of creating together. And so, with all these things together, a mixtape finally formed. And then also shout out to Dean DeVizio for being my photographer. He got a lot of really
Yeah.
cool pictures that I was able to use. And so it was the creative process looked like collecting what seemed like a bunch of random things that actually ended up working together, and then just using the people around me to help me out.
Yeah. You got to use the people around you like that.
Oh
You're
yeah.
not going to survive in this field if you don't. Simple as
No.
that.
Yep.
John gave very good advice in those early classes. But yeah, no,
Mhm.
dude, that's amazing. I think like the thing I struggle with, like you said, is trying to find songs that actually like fit together. Well, like some of them do fit together, but then like something goes wrong with the mixing, or just I don't know, something
Right.
always goes out of whack.
Mhm.
Um, and so tying into like the capstone, I'm assuming you're graduating spring 21 as well.
Yep.
Cool, cool. So what are you looking at doing for that? Just out of curiosity.
I'm looking at doing something similar to what I just did with this mixtape, because this mixtape, although I took it very seriously and I stand by all the messages in it and I really want it to affect people, although I stand by all those things, it was practice in a sense for what will be the capstone,
Yeah.
because this mixtape is only on YouTube, as are all of my songs. And so what my capstone looks like next year is me taking all the skills that I learned in creating this, and I learned a lot uh, through the good and the bad,
Hmm.
and using that to create a more professional project that will hopefully be an EP of maybe 4 or 5 songs that are as professionally done as I can get, and then that will actually go on Spotify, on Apple Music, and it will actually be official.
Legitimized, so to speak.
What's that?
Legitimized, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Mhm.
I Yeah, I'm trying to do something similar with like I think the EP form, like 3 to 6 songs, works really well.
Mhm.
I'm also trying to like use a Max project in there somehow. I don't know. I have way too
Do it,
many
dude.
ideas.
Do it.
But yeah. Um so let's see. Got a couple more questions. Favorite album that has come out this year and or song.
My favorite album that came out this year, I don't know if anyone's gonna know what it is, but it's called Heathen by a guy named Gauvi, who used to be like a pop EDM artist, and now he's kind of like pop hip hop trap.
Mm,
And he brings really unique stuff to the table with his flow and his style, and he features a lot of rappers on his project. So it's kind of, in a sense, it kind of reminds me of like a DJ Khaled type thing where
yeah,
you just have, it's like a huge collaborative thing, but you produced it. Um, I really enjoy his album Heathen. That's what I've been
even.
enjoying 2020.
Any song in particular or just all of them? If
Um,
you had to pick one.
he has a song called Climate Change that I really, really like. It goes hard.
Word. We'll
Yeah.
have to link it in the description or something.
Yeah, do it.
We'll do that. If you could be so another one, if you could be a vocalist for any artist, who would it be and why? Or a rapper or a I don't even know.
Um,
Vocalizer.
of like, if I could,
Like like yeah, if you were like a front man for any type of project or I don't even know. Wu-Tang or who
okay,
knows.
yeah,
Or like a
there's a,
collective if you want that too.
yeah, for sure. There's a record label. So a lot of people don't know this, but there's actually like a subgenre of hip hop called CHH, which stands for Christian hip hop. And people go about that a lot of strange ways because some people don't want to be associated with Christian, even though they are Christian, because they feel like that puts them in a box. Um,
Right.
and like if people hear Christian, they might not want to listen to it. And so I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that. But at the same time, I'm looking at the CHH space, and I'm recognizing like how legit it's becoming and how
Yeah.
professional, and like it's really spreading. And a lot of my favorite artists have come from that space. And there's one of the biggest record labels is called Reach Records, and they have pretty much all of my favorite artists are signed there. Maybe you've heard of Andy Mineo. He's signed to that label.
No, I don't think so.
Um,
You told me about KB though.
KB, yeah, KB.
Yeah.
What? He actually just
That dude
left that label,
slaps.
but
Oh, he left. Oh.
yeah, he went
Spoke
to,
too soon.
but it's good. He's on to like bigger, better things as more
Sure.
solo, and so people like that, like KB, Lecrae, Andy Mineo. If none of the listeners
Yeah.
know who those guys are, you should go look them up. I'd like to be in a space like that where my faith and what I speak of Christ is expected to be at the forefront, is encouraged to be at the forefront, and just to be in that community, I
Yeah.
think would be sweet. So I'd love to be a part of that.
And as a collaborative space too, I feel like it's there's lots of opportunities. And once people hear your stuff, they'll be like, "All right, let's go. I'll
Oh yeah,
produce it." Like what you know?
yeah. Because the cool thing about like that space is it's so collaborative. Like there's so many
Yeah.
artists. They're not like blowing up and taking over the world. So they really need each other. And there's so much collaboration, so much teamwork. And it's
Yeah.
just, as like a consumer, as a viewer of the stuff that comes out of that space, it's so cool to see so many familiar faces on so many different projects. And it's really special, I think.
Yeah. The I'll just mention this briefly. The kind of sub genre of post hardcore that I listen to with metal and all that jazz is called like swancore based on Will Swan's music, and it's like all these
Nice.
guys just kind of collaborate on each other's projects, and you just see all these features, and it's
Mhm.
it's kind of turning into like the rap industry in some regards. in some aspects, where it's just like you'll have this guy playing guitar featured on vocals, and it's just like I love it. Like 2020 is just like for besides COVID, I think the collaborative workspace is really special and something that people are going to remember in kind of all genres. So,
Yeah, you know what else? Who else that makes me think of?
hmm,
Um, MGK, Machine Gun Kelly.
yeah,
Dude, the stuff he's been posting on YouTube, like with Travis Barker, and
hmm,
that dude is just having so much fun with this and is still finding a way to work with so many people. And that's another person I've been listening
yeah.
to. I
Travis
wasn't really
Barker,
a fan of his um MGK, just with all the
yeah,
stuff that he's doing on YouTube. I wasn't really a fan of his until all this stuff started happening and I saw
yeah.
how creative he's gotten. So there's
Does
yeah, we can
one,
all still be collaborative and we can still work
yeah.
hard despite this.
What advice would you give to younger musicians just starting out in the collaborative or artist fields, especially now?
Yeah, right. Um, the advice I would give to beginner artists is surround yourself with people, but also be confident in your vision and what you want to come out of your music. For me, I wish that um, something, and it's something I'm still working on. I wish that in the past I would have taken more consideration of other people's opinion of how my music sounds, what the mix is like, what the vocals and the cadence of my voice is like, so that I could improve that based on feedback. And that's something that I'm just now starting to actually take seriously in terms of other people's thoughts and opinions on my music.
And not like
And
victimize yourself too is huge,
yeah,
you know?
it's a huge balance you gotta find because it's really nice to have a team that is gonna be honest with you and is actually gonna try to make you better. But you also need to stand your ground uh, and know that and trust yourself. If you're a talented musician or talented artist, trust that you do have the final say, but
Yeah.
also consider your friends.
Yeah, 100%. Man, like even the single I popped out a couple weeks back on
Yes,
420, dude,
fire, dude.
when I was mixing that thing, I'm like, I hate this so much and I don't ever want to look at it again. I went back again like a couple days ago. I'm like, it was kind of fun, you know?
Right, right.
So even like separating yourself from your art to the point where like you're not too attached to it and able to start over if people give like really good suggestions, you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Uh, I have something to say about that real quick.
Sure.
Um, just an example of that is if you don't ever step away from your art and how it can drive you crazy. One thing that happened to me when I was making this mixtape, well, there was the last song on the track called Tsunami, and there was just something wrong with it, and I could not figure out what it was. And I had been
Yeah.
like going hard at this song for like 2 or 3 days, and so I, I eventually was like, "Mom, come in and listen to this," because I just needed anybody's ears but mine to hear this song
Yeah.
and tell me what's wrong with it. And my mom was like, that lady singing in the background is just a little too loud. And that was like the sample. And I was like, oh, I've been so close to this project that I was tweaking
Yeah.
my EQ on my voice. I was tweaking the panning, everything. And I didn't even think of that. And so
Yeah.
you gotta like step back sometimes and just get a fresh set of ears to listen to what you have. And they will probably notice something that you didn't even think about.
Number one like mixing tip for anyone ever.
Yeah.
Like step back. Don't don't spend 20 hours straight like unless you're Jacob Collier and you can do that, but
Right.
yeah, man. Well, yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm just glad we got to do this. It's good to see you again.
Me too, man. Thanks everyone.